Hi, today I'm going to talk about some of the new enemies that I've created for work in progress title Roid. I was on vacation last week, so I didn't get a ton of work done, but the past 48 hours I haven't been catching up on work. Or rather, I haven't, any hours that I haven't spent catching up on work, I've spent working on the game, which is a good 12 hours or something like that. So let's talk about the first enemy that I've implemented. It's a wizard enemy, and let me just enable it real quick. So if I go into the game and hit play, what I noticed originally, actually before I do that, let me re-enable this carrier, or actually let me re-enable this laser shooter. So this carrier, or this laser shooter that you've seen in a different video, as you know, charges up a laser and then releases it to shoot. So what I've added at the bottom left corner is a brand new health bar. Right now the player obviously has a lot of health, and I might change it later on to be different numbers of pips, but basically every time you get hit you take 1 damage, or however much damage that enemy does to you, and your health bar will go down a pip. Now those pips go into half pips, so if you take 1 damage, you will actually lose half a pip, as you are about to see. So once I start taking damage, as it goes now, you'll see that my health bar will drain very slowly. And I'm pretty sure at the very beginning of the game, you'll only start with 1 full health pip, which is 2 hits from any of the beginning of the game enemies. And obviously he'll change that graphic at the bottom left corner because it's pretty terrible right now. I don't know what I'll make it, but I actually always liked the Metroid energy tanks graphic, which was just literally a white square. And then you had a number to show how much energy was left in that tank itself. But I like the idea of hearts too from Zelda. I don't think hearts would fit here, so I'll try to think of something else. But anyway, so I implemented health, so now I can actually make combat do stuff other than kill you in 1 hit. Okay, so going back, we've already seen this laser shooter enemy. You've already seen the carrier enemy as well, which I improved slightly. I also updated my project to Unity 5.6, which means that the new lighting system is in play, and that actually, every single time you make a change, instead of rebaking the entire scene, it sort of does this preview of the lighting on the scene. I need to read up on it to see exactly how it works, but it's definitely way better because you can instantly still continue seeing the lights on your scene. The only problem is I have an i5 2500K, which means it's a little bit old and not quite up to date. Whoops, I did not enable this. Okay. So the carrier, not super exciting. I made it so that it just, instead of spawning and not moving the enemies actually just shoot out and then start following you. Okay, so that's not very exciting. Let's go to the more exciting stuff. So I've created a wizard enemy. I don't know why I called it a wizard, but I thought of it as something that was like casting a spell. And essentially what it does is it places this targeting spot on the ground. It predicts your movement, so if you're moving in this direction, it'll actually place it. And if you keep moving straight, you will die. And I have to reset because it'll warp me back to the last checkpoint. But if I go back to play, as you can see, I've added a little particle effect of it charging up its shot, and then it releases it and it kind of all shoots out of it. Over here, you can see that the targeting laser kind of explodes. I'm a little bit worried that people are going to be confused that walking into that red zone will hurt them, but hopefully they will figure it out. The reason that I created this originally was because this game has a problem where I can just side strafe and continue shooting and avoid all damage. With this, you actually have to watch out for where you're going, because no matter what, if you go in a straight direction, it's going to pretty much kill you. Each of these particles, by the way, deals 1 damage. I might change that. I haven't decided yet, but it's like the only enemy in the game that does that. Okay, so cool. So this is a wizard. I haven't added any movement. I haven't actually felt the need to, because it does this explosion thing kind of remotely. I like the fact that it doesn't move, and it's sort of like an automated turret. It does move if you hit it, but it's sort of like a remote turret, which I thought was pretty cool. Okay, so moving on from that, if I disable this wizard, I've created a black hole. What I wanted to do was be able to have rooms that have set challenges where the doors lock and then a bunch of enemies will spawn and you have to kill the enemies and whatever. And to do that, I wanted some way of spawning enemies. And I can't just make enemies instantly appear because that would look bad. I could, of course, create like vents and stuff for enemies to fly out of, but that would be a lot of work for implementing them in every single room. So what I have right now, and this only works with 1 enemy, but if I hit play, you will see, did I not enable it? Oops. No, I did not. You will see this black hole appearing, and then it shoots out a whole bunch of enemies at you. Which is great if you use the new black hole spawner, which will spawn a number of black holes at whatever spawn rate you set. So essentially it takes a big square of the room and then spawns black holes at random locations in that room. I actually haven't implemented a check to see if it overlaps with the player yet, but I'll do that eventually. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and it gets pretty hectic once it spawns like 80 million enemies. Okay, great. So that's cool. Okay, so let's go back and I've got 2 more that you've probably already seen before that were in the original video, but it's the proxy bat and the cannon. And the cannon looks like absolute crap along with the carrier, obviously. I need to like learn to model and actually make these semi-interesting. But this one just shoots stuff at you. It's not super interesting. You can actually shoot the shots and kill the shots. This one is more interesting. You can shoot it if you end up seeing it first. I might change the color to make it like blend in with the wall and stuff. But if you walk under it, it'll actually start spinning and drop down and explode. So that's more of an environmental enemy. Okay, going away from those enemies, let's enable... Actually, let's leave the proxy bat on. So what I've done is made the weapon a little bit better. As you can see now, there's obviously a little bit of kickback when you shoot. I definitely want to change this weapon model because it makes 0 sense for the shot that it's firing, and I got it off the asset store or whatever, doesn't matter. So what you can do now, just like Metroid, is when you click and hold, it will charge up a shot, and you can see little particles going towards the weapon. And then when you release, it'll fire it and make a bigger explosion and do more damage. That enemy actually takes 3 normal hits to kill, but it does 3 times the damage when you charge it up. And it's a very fast charge, just like the Metroid Beam, simply because I just don't find the thought of waiting for your cannon to charge like 5-10 seconds very interesting. I like this kind of strategy of maximizing your firepower by only charging it up just enough so that it maxes out the energy. I definitely need to add some particle effects to like give you a better indication of when it's fully charged, and then possibly like a particle effect of something shooting out of the gun, or rather like some sort of white light emanating from the gun when the shot is fired. Yeah, I've also edited a bunch of values for the player. I've given the player more air control, so now you can actually, if you see here, you can actually move in the air quite a bit. It gives you a little bit more control. I've increased the speed a little bit, and I've given a little shake to the gun when you charge. So the problem I'm having right now is that combat itself, actually let me show you, the combat itself, if I enable all of these enemies, And I hit play. And of course, the new light mapper is big. Oh, that's not supposed to happen. That's okay. So if I hit play, you'll see all these different enemies are going and spawning. If you look at my health in the bottom left corner, I still haven't lost any health, and this room is filled with every single enemy that I've created so far. So right now, nothing is dangerous. You can't actually hurt the black holes, by the way. It's not terrible. Like, if I played this, if I downloaded this for free, I'd be like, cool, as long as there's like sweet Metroidvania stuff to find and cool upgrades and nice traversal and all that stuff, I'd be pretty happy with it. But like, as a paid game, this would be terrible. There's no challenge here. You just strafe around in circles and keep clicking mouse 1, and that's it. So what I need to do is figure out how to add some sort of enemies that will be interesting to play against, and I was really surprised. In 2D, it's easy. In 2D, if we go look at a Metroid map, essentially, let's open it. You move from left to right, and your path is very constrained along that. So if you create enemies with different patterns, one that does a wave, one that shoots down, you'll always have something that has the ability to block the player. The thing is, with 3D space, it's not that simple. You can't just block the player in 3D space. You have to be able to obstruct them in other ways, and you could always lock doors until enemies are dead and stuff like that, but that's kind of boring. Who likes getting locked in an area and then being forced to kill every single enemy to progress? I mean, maybe the first couple of times it's fine, but can you imagine doing it over and over and over again in the entire game? Twilight Princess did this with the wolf, and that was easily the worst part of the game. The sections where you had to do exploration. It wasn't even exploration. It was just move forward linearly with the wolf and kill enemies. That was so bad. I hated it. Oh my god. So I have to make the combat interesting. If anyone has any ideas of some 3D first-person shooters that do more than just humanoid enemies that shoot you from the ground, that's going to be really tough for me because I have zero modeling experience, I have zero animation experience, which means that I can't really make anything that looks like it would actually shoot you on the ground and that actually moves around. And that being said, I don't really like the idea of doing hit scan enemies where their shots will hit you every X seconds or whatever. That's not really fun to me either. So if anyone has any ideas of how to make this more interesting, I am all ears. I would love to hear how I can make it better. Until then, what I plan on doing is creating a couple more enemies. I have some good ideas for stuff that could potentially make it better, including one enemy that kind of floats around, sort of hovers like a jet, and then shoots much faster bullets so that they're really kind of tough to avoid, but it also tracks you, just like these. So instead of these, you could just move in the other direction and it's no big deal, but for those it would be a much more constant source of damage and harder to avoid. But again, that's only one enemy, and I need more ideas of how I can make it better. I thought about implementing a sprint as well and a dash. Sprint is out of the question because if I add a sprint, then you're just going to hold down sprint the entire time you're playing. And what the hell's the point? I might as well just make the movement speed faster. Or maybe there's actually some sort of benefit to giving the player the option of controlling their speed. Never thought about that. maybe I'll do that. But I also thought about adding a stamina bar, which seems kind of lame, just a sprint. And then there's air dash, or dash rather, which I don't want the player to have at the starting of the game. They're going to unlock it after the first boss, which is going to give them the ability to dash in the air and then dodge quickly. And then let them traverse new areas with that extra air movement, dodge, whatever you want to call it. Cool. So that's all I have today. Tomorrow and the rest of this week will be spent on, again, refining combat. Hopefully I have something interesting by the end of this week so I can actually get going again on creating the rest of the game, specifically prototyping, the levels and everything that you haven't seen yet. Cool. All right. Well, see you next time, I guess.